The two of you were the first in your families to attend college. I too am a first-generation college student, and I understand the challenges that come with it. How has being a first-generation student influenced your leadership and your decisions at ASU and MIT?
So for me, growing up in a working class family and then being around working class relatives and working class communities, and as well as a lot of people who weren't able to work or didn't have any access to employment, for me, what I saw was many very, very intelligent, smart, keenly acute, very philosophically deep individuals who had no access to college. And what I sensed along the way as in my life, as I got a little bit more education and began taking and looking from a perspective, I saw that many people were not going to be able to meet their or rise to their full potential. And for me, that's almost become an obsession. You know, how to help people to reach their potential. By potential, I don't mean, oh, you have a college degree or you don't have a college degree. What I mean, that's a part of it. What I mean is that their creative moment, their idea, their way of doing things maybe didn't find a way to get out. And what I noticed was that I was always surrounded by really smart people who were not well educated. And I also realized very quickly that if you got slightly educated, somehow you were given this advantage over people that were just as smart or smarter than you were. And I felt this all the time. And so I just felt that was unfair. And so I just decided to work on that as a part of what I was here to do.
I think what has influenced me mostly has been the fact that I kind of understand the students. I understand what they're going through. To me, it was important to have a role model to guide me because I had no idea of how to handle all these things which are very new to me. So I know these students need role models, and we try to arrange that kind of environment for them. I also know how difficult it is for students in those environments to not know their potential. They just don't know how good they are. They have no way to calibrate themselves. And I want to figure out how to empower them to do that. And it has been an important drive for me to open the pathway for them to catch the breaks that I did, for them to have the same opportunities. So that has driven a lot of the things that I've been trying to do for them at MIT.
How are ASU and MIT working to make higher education more accessible to those students?
Well, some of the things MIT is doing, that's fantastic. I mean, they've really led the world with the idea of an open curriculum that could be available to any learner on the planet. We've taken a lot of lessons from them, and I think that as a relatively small technology institute as opposed to a large public university, we've taken their technological leadership and found ways then to do that at scale for us, which is something that we can do. So I think we've been working towards the same kinds of objectives.
I absolutely admire everything Michael has been doing, and I think when he answered the previous question, you understand why he's done everything he's done here. I mean, that your understanding of what's needed and what drove you is crucial to see how much you accomplished. And I can actually hear myself listening to you what drove you. To me, it means just I know that people who grow up without means, they just don't know their potential. I know that because I experienced that. So we go there. We try to recruit from underprivileged areas. I mean, just to try to explain to them that they can apply, and if they apply and get admitted, they'll do well. We bring them to MIT every year. We bring 75 or so students from underprivileged areas to MIT. In fact, the painful part is that the application, the admission rate to our 6-week program that we do for kids that are rising seniors is tougher to get in than to get into MIT because there is so much interest, because we recruit them. And at least for those who come, they can see, I can do this. And if they don't come to MIT, they'll choose to go in elsewhere, but at least they can see they can do STEM and they can succeed at that. So we go after them, we try to recruit them, and then we practice need-blind admissions and need-based financial aid. I think I wouldn't exaggerate if I say that we are probably only 5 universities in the nation that practice that the way we do. So if you get admitted, if you don't have the means, it doesn't matter. We'll cover those for you. And of course, understanding that people who come from those environments, they don't have the benefits of upbringing in other places, then we assist them when they come to MIT. So we have a 2-year program starting in the summer before the freshman year to acclimate them and to get adjusted to the pace of their place. So that's a significant driver for me. Michael does it at scale in a way that I absolutely admire. I do what I can in the environment that I have.
Well, I think what's happened is that MIT, among the private universities that have highly selective admission standards and operate as, in a sense, as very elite honors colleges, they do that to create this special environment. Now that environment is not reproducible at scale, and not everyone meets the requirements for such an environment, but that doesn't mean they're not qualified to do university level work, or that they're not going to someday be a great electrical engineer or a great philosopher or a great journalist. They can be. And so what MIT has done, and what's so exciting for me in looking at MIT, is that they broke from the pack of most of the other highly selective schools, and built technology platforms, built open courseware, built with Harvard the edX platform, found ways to operate on a global scale. That then gave us capability, drive, tools, mechanisms to now go into our own setting and then see how we could take on this issue at scale, which is really our assignment. So as a public university, that's really our assignment. Those same technologies then have allowed us to then greatly enhance the productivity of our faculty. So we have a highly skilled faculty, very research intensive, who can then deal with thousands and thousands and thousands of students at scale. So that's, in a sense, we're partly a product of the efforts of MIT, and then we're allies together trying to advance this notion that we need to find ways to raise the water for everyone, that is to float all of the boats together.
And I think for those students, the first step is just awareness. For me, that's what it was, just knowing what was out there, what opportunities were out there.
So how did you find ASU?
Mentors. I think mentors that were willing to kind of take me under their wing and sort of tell me what my potential was, because I was not aware of it. So that's why awareness, I think, is key. Switching gears a little bit, Dr. Reif, you're the 17th president of MIT, and Dr. Crow, you're the 16th president of ASU.
He's always ahead of me. On everything that I do, he's ahead of me.
How different has the landscape of education, higher education, been for you compared to that of your predecessors?
Well, I'd say, from my perspective, tremendously different. I mean, ASU was pretty much a standard issue public university struggling with minimal resources, not very many technology tools to allow us to do new kinds of things. We were largely a middle class, largely white institution for a long time. And I think that what we have now is we've embraced the full complexity of our social fabric with a new kind of faculty and a new kind of technology and a new kind of drive and a new kind of energy. And so I would say that the differences are dramatic and significant. It's not that the previous leaders or institutions didn't have the commitment, they didn't have the culture or the means within the institution. The moment in history that we've gotten to is now empowered by all of these things that we have to make things happen.
Well, ASU has got a major transformation. That's visible, that's noticeable. It's amazing what has happened here in terms of scale, and the transformation on what it was 20 years ago and what it is now is huge. It's really huge. MIT is not that big a transformation. The challenges, the differences are right now is that the digital revolution in education is out there, and we have been adapting and driving it as best we can. The difference in the need for computation skills and machine intelligence skills and those kinds of skills in STEM disciplines is very strong. So we are trying to catch up to that in the landscape of competition for global talent. China is emerging as a superpower in all fronts. So those are things that we're dealing with. But I don't think you will see the transformation that Michael has done at ASU, at MIT. Things appear to be more or less the same. We are just dealing with slightly different challenges right now.
You're both leading the way in terms of academic programs and research at ASU and MIT, but what does innovation mean to you?
Well, for me, innovation is all about innovation across the culture. So we've been able to transform our faculty culture from our institutional culture from one which is really faculty-centric to one that is now student-centric, with the faculty being the drivers of that. Once that happened, then we found other ways to innovate across our intellectual design, across our framework, across our ability to collaborate among and between disciplines. Then we found further opportunities for innovation with technology tools allowing us to project our faculty. And so the most important thing about innovation for us is that, at least going forward, with a country growing and diversifying and expanding and more people needing access to higher education, you have to innovate or you're not going to be successful. Now, innovation is different between the two schools, but not that much in some ways.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. The good news is at MIT, just about everybody wants to innovate in their discipline. The question is how to make them innovate, not just in their discipline, but a little bit broader beyond. I'll give you an example of what that means to me, because that's relevant to what Michael is doing here at ASU. In 2005, I became provost at MIT. And in 2001, we started OpenCourseWare, which is putting all our courses online. We did OCW to put a baseline of quality globally. So if you don't have textbooks or you don't have a content, if you want to use this content, well, try this. You can always make it better, but it's a baseline. We never did it to change MIT. We did it just to share with the world. So 4 years later, I become provost, and I get, the first week in office, I get a few faculty showing up in my office, very good lecturers, complaining that students don't go to class anymore. They just don't show up. That they have a class with 60 or 70 students, just 20 show up. And they basically came to complain and say, as provost, I should do something and force them to go to class or do something like that, which of course is crazy. But you know, it crossed my mind that maybe students don't come to their classes because they are lousy lecturers, but in fact, they are actually very good lecturers. So to make a long story short, I started looking into what was going on. And in the MIT environment, everything is learning by doing. So there are many team projects in which students work together building stuff. That's embedded in the education. Well, what the students were doing is when they are in the middle of something, 10 o'clock shows up and they have to go to class, but they don't want to break up where they are right now. And besides, the material is an OpenCourseWare anyway, so why do we have to go to class? The bottom line is what we did to basically impact the world but not touch MIT was touching MIT. Students were not going to class because we put everything online. And then that's where I could see the future. OCW is not tutorial, it's just stuff online, but it's not something you can really easily learn from. So I thought that if we can develop that technology in a tutorial way so that you can learn by yourself instead of just suffering through OCW, which is great, but it's not tutorial, then we can create that future. And that's what led to MITx and edX and the collaboration that we have with ASU. So it's kind of seeing the trend and trying to figure out what does it mean in the future. That's what to me innovation. But luckily, many people practice it. The difference is, as Michael said, is how to make it broader, that is impactful beyond your domain.
You're both leading the way in research, technology, and innovation to the point where some might suggest there's a bit of competition there. But I'd like to know what you appreciate about each other's institutions. So we'll start with you, Dr. Reif. What do you appreciate and find innovative about ASU?
The list is long. And it won't surprise you when I answer with the following. I admire the drive, the tenacity to increase access to every talented young man or woman anywhere, no matter what the background. I am grateful for that. They do it as best as anybody. I admire their ability to just be unafraid to find new pathways for education, for learning. I mean, they are fearless about that. They are the best at it. I admire brilliant ideas like, goodness, the Freshman Global Academy or Global Freshman Academy. I don't know, maybe I'm confused.
Global Freshman.
Global. That's a brilliant idea. You know, it has nobody has even tried that, and they are just showing the way. The list is long in that space. I would like to add something else, that there is the myth that to have a great university, you have to be hyper-selective. You have to reject 90% of the applicants. That makes a great university. ASU and Michael, they have brought all that myth. They have a great university in which they do the best quality education, the best quality research, the best innovation, and they do it by motivating and stimulating young men and women to come and do their best. That's a great university. Michael defines that as a new American university. He's building it, and ASU it is. So you want more? I can keep talking. It's a spectacular institution, and I'm extremely honored to be connected with it.
So for MIT, what's interesting is, so if you imagine, it started out as as in many American industrial cities, there were technology institutes and people that were together. And then as universities began to emerge, MIT stood up and started moving forward. And I think the thing for me about MIT has always been throughout its history this notion of, well, we'll bring together a few students and a few faculty members, and we'll just start solving problems. We'll just start doing things that no one has done before. Your notion that you could build microelectronic devices that wouldn't contaminate the world. You know, the notion of back in the 1920s, there was a guy named Doolittle who got his master's and PhD at MIT in a compressed period of time, and then later became this great aeronautical engineer, great general, great Air Force leader. The MIT has always been this place where a small school finding a group of students to work with the faculty could then just take the leading edge of whatever there was, the media lab that evolved in the 1980s and has continued to evolve, the way that new transdisciplinary engineering, the notion of nano-based systems and nano-based technologies. And then also adding to that, MIT has always taken on big issues like what should be the manufacturing design for the United States? How do we become more competitive? Right before the beginning of World War II, Vannevar Bush, this person who was the vice president for research at MIT, became the President Roosevelt's science advisor. So then there was MIT right in there helping the United States to be victorious. And so it's this basically a place where a few thousand students and a very select group of faculty members come together, and they sit at the sort of the what I call the apex of the arc of scientific and technological history, now matched with philosophy and political science and the Sloan School of Management, thinking about how do we become better, how do we solve our problems. That then empowers and enables the rest of us. I was in high school in Maryland in the 9th grade. We moved around a lot, and Apollo 13 was shooting off to space, and I was a part of a project, believe it or not, that we called Simulated Environmental Controlled Operations, SECO, Project SECO. So it was about 25 kids, and we decided to simulate this space mission. 3 kids would be inside a capsule, and all these other people would be solving problems, and we'd be living during the mission just like the mission. It was an unbelievable project. In that mission, there was this big disaster. And I remember I was on the weather team, and I was on the science team trying to deal with the landing position and all these other kinds of things, and it was really fun. And every kid, they just knew when these reporters went to this building at MIT where people called up and said, well, what's the answer? How will we get these guys back? That's who they called. They called, there was this, I forgot the name of that tower, the geology tower.
Yeah.
They called people in that building, and the rest of us are sitting there, and we're all in like 9th grade, and we're just like 10th grade. That's it. That's where the answers are. Now the answers don't just sit there. The answers are produced there, the options, the alternatives, the scenarios, not all of them, but enough of them. So MIT has this means to produce that kind of environment. Well, you need a couple of those, a few of those spread out across the country, across the world, to then drive everybody else forward. And I think that's what MIT has done for everybody. Increasingly now with a student body that is as Rafael has said, that is in and of itself not just the same kids coming from the same backgrounds as maybe was the case, 50 years ago.
As a new class prepares to graduate from two wonderful institutions, what is your advice to them?
My advice, just don't stop learning. Don't stop. Things are moving very rapidly. The world is changing. Everything is being challenged right now. Technology is changing in an exponential way. Just don't stop learning. Do everything you can to maintain, take some time every year to get involved in learning something new. Hopefully your job will allow you to do that. If it doesn't, do it on your own, but just don't stop learning.
So I agree with the don't stop learning. What I would add to that is I hope that our graduates can resist falling into the temptation that somehow things are bad. Things aren't bad. The world has made unbelievable progress in the last 400 years. I mean, off the charts progress. We're able to do things and dream about things and think about things and have our families, have children in our families make it to adulthood and move their life forward. So the opportunity for the generation of students that are graduating this year is unparalleled. And I sense, I guess the last thing is I have immense confidence in them. People often ask me all the time, are you worried about the future? No. You worried about what's going to happen? No. Why not? I know that the students that are graduating now are in many ways, they think more broadly, they're more aware, I think they're more cognizant of issues of egalitarianism and equality and fraternity, all these things together, and then they're also better equipped. They've learned more, they understand more, they think more quickly, and they all carry supercomputers around in their pockets tied into everything else. And so just be positive. That's the thing that I would put on the table.
Be positive. That's a good ending note. Thank you so much. This was an honor to have the chance to talk to you both. Thank you.